Okay, it's been a 36-degree day in the shade. This pot moved into the shade about 4:30, and I was watering it every sort of hour and a half to an hour and 40 minutes sort of thing, and they've survived another day, so I'm pretty chuffed. I've actually watched the leaf grow a whole centimetre in 24 hours, so that doesn't sound like much, but if we go back, if I got up twice in the night to do 4 double flushes a day, every 6 hours basically, 24 hours, I could get 2 centimetres in growth every day from Sarracenia if I did the double flush. This is going back more than 11 years now, because we sort of looked into the double flush for about 11 years sort of thing, and started around about 2011, just before 2011, and looked into it for about 10 years or a decade, and it's developed on from there, because we found that you could just put a very thin layer of COIR, peat, newspaper cellulose on a bucket of acid wash sand, or just basically sand. It would be better if you did it with acid wash sand, but you can basically get away with nice fine sand which will hold the moisture sort of thing. And we thought, well, all this growth must be coming from this very thin layer that you just covered the surface so you didn't get any rain scourage sort of thing. So as I said, today I'm going to, if I can turn this around, I'm going to put the formula on there in just a minute, and then we're probably going to talk about basics and things like that. Talk about style and style through Hall. He was a bloke last century who basically said there was a lot of plants out there which were glycophytes. In other words, of the 24 so basic transport sugars, there are 2 main ones. There's sucrose and there's glucose basically, but there are about 24 general ones. And the most common one is, of course, sucrose for like sugarcane. And he discovered that a lot of these plants, CPs and CP-related weeds, have glucose in their transport systems or thing. And sort of glucose is a reducing sugar. It can reduce copper to the metal. And I'll just go down a bit as we get ready to try this one. As I said, I was going to try this one. Just going to get some formula. And so we got this formula. It does stick a bit. It will stick to plastic initially, but so you got to keep chugging it around sort of thing initially. So it will stick to pseudo plastics like urea formaldehyde, whether you get it as the foam or whether you get it in the chunks, because they do sell urea formaldehyde as a chunky, very, very, very slow release fertilizer sort of thing, and you can actually bind this to that when you initially make it up sort of thing. So we're just going to put our little spacer there, because it's all the same formula, so we wash it off, it's still the same formula, and we're just going to pour this on like that and let it sink through, and we're going to see if it does its magic on this, because we think it's all about this other element, you see. We think this element in peat, which they say the highest micronutrient in peat is copper, and yet everyone says, our sort of plants and all the CP related weeds and plants like that don't like copper, which seems to be it's not an urban legend or myth. It definitely seems to have some sort of what's the word? It's certainly true to a great extent sort of thing. So we're thinking that maybe the element in peat is not actually copper, it's an element that can act like copper in certain situations and even give that nice blue copper colour under certain conditions. So as this is settling through, I'm probably going to move this thing out the way, give myself some room. I was thinking that I might put it down there, take that pot out, and I thought, well, no, I'll see how we go. I want it in some sun so I can see if I can germinate some seeds, because I get the impression that maybe it's this other element that allows you, 1, to germinate seeds, and 2, to maybe strike cuttings, floating them on water. You may actually have to have this element in the water, because I think it's all to do with iron metabolism. Because as I said, glucose is a reducing sugar that can reduce copper, but I think actually copper is an oxidizing element. I think this other element is actually a reducing element, because they do say that most plants like their iron in the ferric form, but I don't think that's true for our plants. Our plants that probably abhor calcium, but in fact probably don't even use calcium, probably use something else, they probably take their iron in, at least take it in a reduced form, a more soluble form, because they don't like rust, you see. And so we're just going to take this bucket again, another one with a long slip, but because it's going to be COIR this time, it's not going to matter too much, because the COIR is going to hold a lot of moisture. So where we're heading, I'm wondering whether science is finally going to wipe out the Canadian peat industry. It's going to wipe out the Irish peat industry for horticulture anyway, and maybe wipe out the Sri Lankan COIR industry, because if you can do it with just sand, why do you need peat, why do you need COIR sort of thing? But anyway, what we're going to do, we're going to take the bloke at 58 degrees north, I think it was, or was it 38 degrees north, bloke in England, yeah, England, not Britain now, everyone's waking up. Oh yeah, I should put it on. Should have had it on spot colour. Probably think I did that shaking was all out of focus or something. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. And we probably need to go in a bit closer and look down a bit on here. Oh, I've got this hat on, because I'm so used to wearing the hat at this time of year. So I think let's get in a little bit closer. And back and to the left, back and to the left. I don't know. Let's move this out of the way. Getting to be that time of year, isn't it? Back and to the left. I don't think I can do it that way. Oh, I think that's probably going to have to be good enough for the time being anyway. Oh well, unfortunately. Anyway, we'll see. Unless I move the camera around and put the legs around a bit like this, yeah, maybe I can do it this way. Move the camera around this way. That's better. That's what we want. Something like that. A little bit up. There we go. A little bit further. Yeah, I think that's about it. Yeah. We do like the rims of our pots and our tubs, don't we? Anyway. So, we had this bloke called Stahl last year, did all this work on there, but I don't think he quite got the next step of the idea. Because if you go to this book, Serpentine and his Vegetation by R.R. Brooks, a New Zealander, in the Australia section, because it goes through all the the Malay archipelago with all the Nepenthes and things like that, talks about North America, Darlingtonia country, blah blah blah. It has this map. I don't know, I've just got to check that you do get the map. I'll show it to you. Anyway, after I potted this up. Anyway, we'll talk about the map after we potted this thing up. Anyway, we'll put our COIR in, because I get the impression that perhaps the COIR doesn't contain the element that's in peat, and that's why it's not as good as peat. But maybe if we put our formula that contains the element on top of some COIR, we can actually sort of simulate and turn it into peat, and maybe make it better than peat. Maybe that's what the COIR discovery or revolution was in the late 80s to mid 90s or thing. But they never told you about that. They just got you either that, or they were putting COIR into peat to extend it or something, and they had to have some way to get you to start buying COIR or something. I don't know. It does it just doesn't quite make sense. So we're going to take this coir, get it up to the height we want, then we're going to put our formula on it, and then hopefully we'll put some plants in, but we're also going to try and put some seeds down and see if we actually get some germination. Because if we get germination, then it would imply, because I can't get germination at the moment, as you can see, I said, and there's something really strange going on with the peat. It's not actually staining the water. So I'm wondering whether we'll actually, because we've got a formula on top that actually contains this other element that sort of gives the impression that it's copper, but it's not copper in certain situations. It's being confused with copper. So in other words, the highest micronutrient in peat is not actually copper, it's this other element. So if we put this other element into COIR, which I don't think COIR naturally has it in it, or at least not to the levels, we might be able to turn COIR into like a super duper peat, but at, you know, 1/4 of the price, or even less. I don't. The only other hassle with COIR though is apparently it contains a lot of salt, but this bloke at 53 degrees north, or was it 38 degrees north? I can't remember. He reckons he's done some research and they actually wash it in seawater, I think he said. So that was a bit of an eye-opener. So we'll do this. So basically one of those bricks will make up about 1.5 buckets. I've already used about a half of a bucket. So am I knocking the tripod? Bugger. Was I maybe one more handful, I think. And we'll see if it changes the colour of the coir, so on and so forth. And we'll see how we go. Maybe one more handful. And then so we have a nice... so we have a bit of a lip seal, a rim, whatever you want to do, so we can actually add water to, if we get to these really, really hot days around my George Washington birthday, if you want to send me a postcard. We might want to, we might be going out in the middle of the day to add some extra water, because the sunlight here is like X-rays, and any childhood toy in the garden won't last a single season in the sun, sort of thing. So anyway, we'll just smooth this over to get a nice level. Yeah, use this skills and abilities. Okay, now because it's the same. Here we go. I can get my lid. I'll just go and just wash my spacer disc. There we go. Now, what we're going to try and do, if it is level, I don't know, it doesn't quite look level to me. We're going to do the usual thing, give it a good shake, because as I said, it does tend to stick to the plastic initially. And we're going to try. I don't think that's level, fellas. I'm going to do my leveling trick with a piece of. That's a bit too thick, but we're going to have to give it a go. Yes, now that's level. I'll show you afterwards. And now the water's flowing out. We'll see how we go. Now, I'm going to pour this on, just like the other one, and it will form a capping on the surface of the coir, and you can get it all to the edge. And we'll see how we go. If it converts the coir into like super duper peat, I don't know. We'll see what happens. When it changes the colour of the coir over time, we'll see. I don't know if the coir's going to go black or something, like black coir or something. Don't know. But anyway, it's got the other element in there. And if it changes the iron metabolism, as I said, it's almost like you want a cofactor element in a way, a sort of, a little bit often. Did you ever see that movie in the early 1980s, I think it was, with Andy Griffith in it, called Salvage One? If you've ever watched the film Salvage One, the idea of taking a little and making it go a long way over a long period of time is trapped in that movie, sort of thing. So I've always had that idea in the back of my mind. less is more, and a little often is better than a lot at once, sort of thing, you know. If you want to go back and look at that movie, the Andy Griffith movie called Salvage One, it's a very good science fiction movie. It's one that sort of, you wouldn't think so. But anyway, I've done that. I think I'll just wash my hands and make a new clip because I'm going to use my book. So I'll end this clip now, and see that one there with this, the sand still hasn't gone down properly, so it's going to be all right. I won't need a tray for that one. Might need a tray for this, I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, so is the COIR already changing? Does it look different at the moment? I don't know, but we'll start a new one in a minute, and I'll show you this book in the shade sort of thing, so you don't see the blinding white pages. I always think books in Australia should have black pages with white writing on them, so you can look at them out in the sun without having to wear dark glasses. Okay, over for now.